I'm a delivery driver that finds trash on my route to flip for money. And boy, did I hit the jackpot today. This customer of mine buys storage units, or the items in the storage unit, but he won't touch the furniture if it has any kind of damage or missing hardware. So while this is all in fairly good condition, it is missing a lot of the original hardware on it, but that's an easy fix.
Looks like I have competition.
Well, you know what they say. A little competition never hurt anybody, right? Well, except for maybe that guy. I think he was a little hurt by it.
That's okay. I already got all the good stuff. That's right. Walk away.
I would like to mention that if you are going to curbside treasure hunt, aka dig through someone else's trash, there are a couple of things just to keep in mind so that you stay safe and don't bring little extras home. You may have noticed that I took all of the drawers out before I loaded it in the bed of my truck. That's not only to make it less heavy for my little self to load it, it also allows me to look up inside the piece for anything that might be hiding. I recommend getting a piece of cardboard, a credit card, piece of paper, or something and running it up underneath and inside the piece to make sure that nothing comes running out. You can also look for signs of defecation and webs and eggs, and in that case, leave it where it sits. If it checks out, load it up, take it home. When I was loading this particular piece up, I did not realize that it has these huge chunks in the back, probably for a fitted mirror. I did end up going back and checking through the pile the next day, and I still couldn't find the mirror, so I'm gonna have to get crafty. I used a citrus stripper on these drawers earlier off camera, and now I'm using my carbide scraper to scrape off the existing finish. But I've forgotten to grab something out of the trash to wipe my grossness on.
Today's episode is brought to you by SOS Pads.
Ginger, I think you're gonna have to move, buddy. Gentry, you gotta move. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I so wish I had noticed that this had a matching mirror. That would have made not only this a lot easier, but I'm sure it was beautiful. And I'm sure it was laying right there next to it. I just didn't see it. And when I went back the following day to look for it, he had put more trash out there, but it was like really, really gross trash. So I wasn't going to dig through that too hard. I'm going to use painter's tape to build little walls so that the Bondo can have a place to sit and cure, and then I'll come back and sand it, of course. Wish I'd seen that damn mirror. Bondo's my favorite thing to use on stuff like this. It's going to dry harder than the actual wood is. It's perfect for building little extra pieces of corners or, you know, the tops that have been damaged. I love using Bondo for stuff like that. It's a two-part thing where you have your putty and then you mix your hardener into the putty. Always make sure to mix in enough hardener so that it does indeed harden. If you don't, it will stay soft and be super annoying.
Today's Bondo experience is brought to you by Red Baron Pizza.
Of course, I'm absolutely kidding. I am in no way affiliated with Red Baron Pizza or any of the other cardboard that I use for my Bondo experiences. While I'm going to have to paint the top of the piece, I have decided to incorporate the natural wood on the sides and on the drawers. My stripping process is to first start with the buttons.
You what?
I'm totally kidding, guys. The first step to messing with any kind of chemical is to put on gloves and a respirator. It's just always a really good idea to protect yourself. Most of the instances where I use a stripper, it's on the top of something, so it's already laying flat. I'm doing both sides of this piece, so it's not really going to work out for me to lay it either on one side, then I'm going to have to flip it on the other side. So I'm just kind of putting a little bit of stripper on my brush and painting it on the side, basically. I left the stripper on for about 20 minutes before I came back with my big ass scraper and just went from bottom to top. You can go top to bottom if you prefer. You can turn it on its side, but just scrape off the existing finish. Wipe it on your cardboard, your plastic wrap, whatever you have. The Bondo is already setting up really nicely, so I feel confident that I can flip this on its side without messing with that. I just used plain old paint thinner and a quadruple steel wool sponge to wipe off any residue that the paint stripper might have left. If you don't wipe away what's left of the stripper, it's going to gum up under your sander and just be a real huge pain in that. I'm using a 180 grit sandpaper on this handheld electric sander. It gets up into the corners really well. A lot of times I'll use my rotary sander, but with these corners, this one was perfect for the job. Don't you love how dramatically I set those down? So you might be asking, why would you use stripper if you're just going to sand it? Well, that's a great question, and I'm going to answer it right now. You can absolutely just go straight in with like an 80 grit sandpaper and tear up some wood. But if you use the stripper first, it cuts down on your sanding time. And I don't know about y'all, but I ain't about that sanding life. Like, I'd rather pay somebody else to sand for me. A stripper is just going to cut through the existing finish to make it a little bit easier on you. That's all. Now I'm going to sand the top and get all this Bondo smoothed out. I think I've switched over to an 80 grit because my patience with sanding is completely gone, and I'm willing to just tear the crap out of the top of this just to get it done. Because Bondo dries so fast, there's no play time with it when you're applying it to whatever you're fixing. So sometimes it's hard to get it smooth, especially when there's like big chunks of the wood taken out like the top of this piece. I like to use this mud, which is basically a wood filler, but it's got a little more of a mud-like consistency to it. It has a lot more play time than Bondo, so you can use your spatula to get it as smooth as possible, and then come in with a handheld sanding pad to get it flawless. So I like to top off any Bondo jobs that I do with a little bit of this mud, which I then keep in my refrigerator because it makes it last a whole lot longer. I'm gonna give this mud about 24 hours to dry. Why would it be driving? 24 hours to dry before coming in and sanding it. But meanwhile, we're going to stain the sides. It's always a fantastic idea to clean whatever surface you're about to paint or stain. So here, I've wiped it with my dust brush, and I'm taking a lint-free cloth to make sure that I get everything, including those little tiny corners down there. So I like the glove and single sock method to apply my stain. I did discover another YouTuber that also uses this method. I really thought that I invented this, and I was really disappointed because he's been in business longer than me, that I didn't indeed invent this method. But, you know, there's only so many methods, right? But I heard him say use a clean sock. It never occurred to me that someone might use a dirty sock to apply stain. But yes, indeed, it must be a clean sock. You don't want any foot grime in there with your stain. Well, I like gel stain because it's a pudding-like consistency and it can go over any finish. This happens to be bare wood, but it could also go over this part of it, a factory finish, painted, primed, it doesn't even matter. It sits on top of whatever it is, or it soaks into whatever it is. So it's like a chameleon of stains, if that's a thing. Whatever. Okay, here we go. It's very red. I have decided to stain not only the fronts and sides, but also the back and the inside of each of these 3 drawers. I think it just gives it a more uniform look. This wood is just kind of old and tired looking, and this is going to give it a revived, really beautiful, deep toned red. That's going to give this piece a really unique and beautiful look.
I just finished staining these drawers back here. On this hand, I wore a glove. You can tell where it stopped. On this hand, I did not. I'll show you a little trick. Oh, it's dried on there good. I may have needed more. For a good little trick, right? It just saves you from having to use something like mineral spirits on your skin. This is so much like a spa treatment. I'm gonna go for round 2. My hands are super soft now.
Now I know I said I usually hand sand the mud back, but there was so much of it on the top, and I told you, sanding is not my jam. So I took my electric sander with a 220 grit. It's a very gentle sand grit. And I'm just going to rub it over and be just super, super gentle. I'm not going to bear down or work it super crazy. Like I said, I just want to be gentle. This is my go-to chalk paint. It's the one that I use on the majority of all of my pieces. I like it, number one, because it gives really great coverage, but it's also easy for heavy-handed painters like me because it's self-leveling. And that just gives me a better chance to get a smooth finish. You also don't have to seal it. It does dry with a chalky, as chalk paint does. It'll dry with a chalky feel to it, and I do prefer a little more of a satin finish. So I always top coat my stuff, especially on the tops of the pieces, as they're gonna get more use. By the way, I have listed all of the products I use in this video in the description below. I don't know why I didn't notice that this was more than just a little crack. This was a crack that goes all the way through and needed to have been glued probably back before I even mudded it, but you know what? Here we are, and we're gluing it now. I'm just trying to open it up as much as I can and use my mud spatula to get the glue as deep down into that crack as possible. And as always, when using wood glue, it is best to come and get that residual up as soon as possible. If it dries, you're gonna have to sand it off, as it's not dry yet. So I can just take my wet lint-free cloth and wipe that back. Now for clampage. So I can still just barely see where the chunks of Bondo are. I'm gonna take one more thing of mud and wipe it over one more time.
Good Lord.
I noticed as I was staining the insides of the drawers that it was really difficult to get into all of the cracks where the drawers met up. So I'm taking this little detail brush, and just a tiny bit of stain is going to get that all one cohesive look.
Anytime you're going to clear coat a dark color, you want to tint your clear coat that color, because normally it comes in like this like weird whitish, clear, whatever color. So if you tint your, whatever the hell this is, then it's not gonna, why can't I speak? Just tint your clear coat. It will be easier on you. Trust me, whatever, end of story. Gosh. You don't have to have a whole bunch. Just basically, that'll do it. Just a little bit.
I use a furniture wax on all of my pieces. It's going to refurbish the wood, it's going to protect it, it's going to make it nice and shiny, and it's going to make it smell really nice. I apply it using a big wax brush, and I do the insides, the outsides, the drawer rails, and it's just going to give this wood a beautiful finish, and it's also going to help the drawers slide in and out really easy. So, win-win. This is actually the original hardware to the piece. I had 5 of the 6 I needed. So I took 4 originals and then 2 knobs out of the boneyard and painted them all to be cohesive.
Wait, I can do that better. You're going to want to tint it that, wait. Anytime you tint a dark, that's a wrap.